All right, beautiful people, let's get started. I'm Davina Parker, also known as Ms. D. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and this is Therapy Thursdays. So people have had time to send in questions throughout the week, and I want to answer. I picked two, so I think it's a lot of people can relate. So let's get into it. Right? Let's start with our first one. Dear Ms. D, I feel like I've accomplished a lot. No, I know I have. I really love my job, and I'm passionate about the impact I have as well as what I've accomplished. I've received awards, won most of my cases, and have never made as much money as I make now. I'm living the dream, but my husband and I just don't seem to be connected. I have twin girls who are 8 months old. My husband and I agreed to have my mother in law move in to help. I do work a lot and sometimes come home after 10 and the girls are already asleep. My husband says I'm married to my job and not to him. I care about him, but also my job. My question is there a way to have both? This is what I call someone who is a high achiever. So these are my people, my attorneys. You say one cases, so it sounds like you're an attorney. These are my attorneys. These are my high speed military people. These are the executives. These are the people whose jobs they demand so much of them, right? And there's a part of you that enjoys it. You enjoy accomplishing things. So if that's you and that's the kind of job you have, I want you to lean in because I want to share with you how this is impacting, how it could impact your personal relationship. So you ask if you can have both. Think about the job description that you have. Your job description at work requires you to be there a certain time, requires you to show up in a particular way. It requires you to show up and show out, right? Right? Now that is a working relationship. It's still a relationship. It doesn't have to be a person to be considered a relationship. That is a work relationship, right? Now I want you to think about the other relationships that you have in your life. That, like your marriage, that's a relationship. You being a parent, that's a relationship. Even a daughter-in-law, that's a relationship. A friend, that's a relationship. But we're speaking in terms of your relationship, your marriage, one with your husband. What What's the job description? Meaning, what are the expectations? What does your marriage need to thrive? Do you know that? Do you know what is needed for that? And it might be as simple as asking your husband, what do you need? And it sounds like he shared he wants time. Time. When you are a high achiever and you're putting all the work in over here on this end, you're putting all the work in on this end, it's getting most of you and everything else is getting less of you. And just like with anything else, you put more energy here in this area, the work is going to suffer. So it's like this dance that you're trying to figure out, where's the balance? How do we do this? I want you to ask yourself these questions because there's more here. Here's some questions. All right. What are you getting from your job that you're not getting at home? I pause because I want you to think about it. What are you getting? Because it has to be filling a need, some kind of need for you to be willing to compromise the state of your marriage because that is what it's doing. Let's be honest, that is what it's doing. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing when I read that. What do you get? And here's another question: what are you afraid of losing if you redirected the overflow of that time to your marriage, to your husband, to your family? Now, listen, y'all. This goes for both men and women. This is the high achiever, right? This is not a thing about gender. Because and I've seen this time and time again when whether I have a couple that comes in or an individual and they're sharing how it's like a love triangle. It's like a love triangle with the job where your spouse has to compete for your attention. They have to compete for your time. And so I want to encourage you to ask yourself, what what are my values? That's the question. What do I value and where does my marriage fall? Where does it fall? I am not the kind of person to say, well, you need to quit your job altogether. That's an option, but it's also, let's put things into perspective. Where do you want to be? Right? Where do you want to be? What do you want to pour into? Uh, I don't want to spend too much time on it because I can go on and on. I would encourage you to consider individual therapy. I would say marriage therapy, but it sounds like there's some self exploration that you have to do. And for my other people who have these kinds of jobs, yes, your job can get in the way of you having healthy, thriving, uh, specifically your romantic relationships and other relationships, right? Okay. I hope that helps. Next question. Oh, let me go back. Where we at? Where we at? Okay, the next one. Dear Miss D, I hate to send this in, but I figured I'd send a question to maybe gain clarity on my situation. I had a family member pass recently, and at their funeral, there were only a handful of people there. He was my uncle, and he passed away at 75. For someone who lived so long, how could he only have less than 6 people at his funeral? I don't remember him having people that he spent time with. Now, this comes up because I begin to think about myself. I grew up in the military because my dad was in the military, and I have people I'm cool with, but I don't really think we're close. Meaning, I don't know if they would show up to my funeral when I'm old. I moved often as a kid, and I have a job that has me moving often, so I guess I've kept it up. I meet people, we click, but when I leave, that's it. I don't want to be like my uncle. He was a good guy, but I don't want to be alone. You are describing you are a military kid who has grown up. Now it's a great defense mechanism that we have. It's a survival skill, right? It hurts. You get to a point where you realize, oh, I'm just going to keep leaving. How am I going to handle this? I'm just going to keep leaving. So you to protect your heart, you don't make deeper connections, because why would I do that? I'm just going to leave anyway. And this is how it impacts you now as an adult. As an adult, you're doing the same thing, and there are moments where you're present with people. I'm hearing you say, I'm present with people, but when we leave, there's still some kind of gap. There's a hole there. I don't feel deeply connected. I know people may think like, oh, she's going to always say the answer is therapy. For you, community. Community. And not just in the moment, because it sounds like you're good with the in the moment community. I'm talking about longevity and how to maintain connections with community. We get lost in things, even as adults, right? We get lost, and I call it working the machine. We're working the machine, and we're not keeping up with the people in our lives, the relationships that we have. So that means that, here's an example that would look like recalling somebody and say, hey, let's do like a weekly check-in or a check-in once a month, where we just catch up and tell each other what's going on. We just keep up. We might even schedule a trip once a year where we like physically come together and connect. I want you to consider doing that. I want you to think about the last person you connected with. Y'all was cool, y'all were vibing, and it seemed healthy. This is good people. And I want you to reach out to them and be like, hey, you came to mind. Yeah, man, we got to stay in contact. Let's do it, and introduce that. Because what you're craving is connection. What you're craving is connection. All right. Could you benefit from individual therapy? Sure. I think there's a lot you can learn in terms of different, or even coaching, or different things you can do. I also want you to consider connecting in community, whether it's a local church, whether it's a group that regarding your hobbies, or just reaching back. Sometimes we have a support system, but we don't realize we have it. Reach back out. Okay. I'm Ms. D, Davina Parker, Marriage and Family Therapy, and thank you for joining me for Therapy Thursdays.